The Great Hall of Convergence Prime was silent. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their floating seats, arranged in a massive circle that rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into artificial clouds. At the center of this circle, standing on a platform no larger than a small room, Ambassador Park Sun-woo waited for his fate. He was not alone. Captain Lee Yuna stood to his left, her military uniform sharp and pressed, despite the long journey to reach this station. Chief Advisor Choi Min-ho stood to his right, his tablet clutched in hands that had finally stopped shaking. They had known this day would come. They had hoped it would not come so soon. 18 years. That was all the time humanity had been part of the Galactic Assembly. 18 years since the first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky and offered them a place among the stars. 18 years of wonder, of learning, of trying so hard to prove they belonged. It had not been enough. High Counselor Vila rose from his seat at the highest point of the chamber. He was Thrinixtal, thin, with skin like polished silver and eyes that held no warmth. His species had ruled this assembly for 3,000 years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had decided which species would thrive and which would fade into history today. They would decide what happened to Earth. The Council has reviewed all evidence, Velor announced. His voice carried through the hall without any need for technology. The species known as humanity has been observed for 18 standard cycles. Our findings are complete. Sun-woo kept his face calm. Beside him, Yuna's jaw tightened. They had heard the rumors. They knew what was coming. Humanity expands too quickly, Velar continued. In 18 cycles, they have colonized 7 worlds. They breed at rates that concern our population experts. They refuse to accept genetic modification to control their emotional responses. He paused, letting the words sink in. They are unpredictable. They are dangerous. They are not ready for galactic society. A murmur ran through the assembly. Some delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked away, unwilling to meet the eyes of the 3 humans standing below. Choi Min-ho leaned close to Sun-woo. We still have allies. The Koran delegation, They will not speak for us, Sun-woo said quietly. Look at their faces. They are afraid. He was right. The few species who had shown friendship to humanity over the years now sat in silence. Their representatives stared at the floor, or studied their tablets, or pretended to be elsewhere. No one wanted to stand against the Thrinax. No one wanted to share humanity's punishment. Velar raised one long-fingered hand. The vote will now commence. The question before this assembly: shall humanity be contained within their current space, separated from galactic civilization by the activation of the Veil? The Veil Sun-woo had read about it in classified reports. Ancient technology from a species long dead. It created a dimensional barrier around a region of space, a prison, with no walls, no guards, and no escape. Ships could not pass through it. Signals could not breach it. Those inside were cut off completely from the rest of the universe. It had been used twice before in galactic history. Both times the species trapped inside had collapsed within a century. Destroyed by isolation and despair. The voting lights began to appear. Green for exile. Red for freedom. One by one, the delegations made their choice. Green, green, green. The light spread across the chamber like a disease. Yuna's hand moved toward her sidearm before she stopped herself. There was no fighting this. There were 3 of them, and 10,000 aliens in this room alone. The human fleet waiting outside was 30 ships. The assembly commanded millions. The final count appeared in glowing letters above Velar's head. The vote was unanimous. Every single species had voted for humanity's exile. Velar smiled. It was not a kind expression. The motion passes. The Veil will be activated within 1 standard rotation. All human vessels outside their designated space will be escorted to the boundary. Any resistance will be met with force. The chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates turned to each other, already discussing trade routes that would need to change, territories that would now be safe from human expansion. To them, this was just politics. Just another problem solved. To the 3 humans standing at the center of it all, it was the end of everything. Ambassador Sun-woo Velar said, his voice cutting through the noise. You may make a final statement, if you wish. A formality, of course. Your words will change nothing. Sun Wu looked up at the High Counselor. He looked at the thousands of faces staring down at him, some curious, some amused, most already bored. He thought about Earth. He thought about the colonies. He thought about the children who would grow up inside a cage they did not deserve. He stepped forward and spoke clearly. "You believe you know us," he said. "You have watched us for 18 years and decided that you understand what humanity is? You see our emotions and call us unstable. You see our growth and call us dangerous. You see our youth and call us primitive." The chamber grew quiet again. Even Veeler's smile faded slightly. "But you have made a mistake," Sun Wu continued. "You mistake our youth for weakness. You mistake our emotion for chaos. You mistake our ambition for threat." He paused and looked directly at Veelor. "We have survived ice ages. We have survived plagues. We have survived wars that killed millions. We have always survived. And we have always grown stronger." Veelor waved a dismissive hand. "Pretty words. They will not breach the veil." "Perhaps not today," Sun Wu agreed. "But let me leave you with this promise. When this veil falls, and it will fall, remember that you chose this path. Not us. You." A few delegates laughed. Villers shook his head like a parent dealing with a stubborn child. The next morning, the veil activated. A shimmer of light surrounded human space, visible for just a moment before it became invisible, undetectable. Impenetrable. Earth went dark. The Galactic Assembly moved on to other business. Within a week, humanity was forgotten. Within a month, they became a cautionary tale. Within a year, most species stopped thinking about them entirely. They were gone. They were contained. They were no longer a problem. That was the first mistake. 30 years passed inside the veil. The Galactic Assembly expected humanity to fall apart. They expected riots, starvation, civil war. They expected desperate signals, begging for mercy, for food, for help. They expected what had happened to every other species trapped behind that. Dimensional barrier? They expected wrong. Dr. Kim Hanna stood in her laboratory on the dark side of Earth's moon, staring at equations that floated in the air before her. She had been working on this problem for 11 years. 11 years of failure. 11 years of people telling her it was impossible. The math said otherwise. "Run the simulation again," she said to her assistant. The holographic display flickered and reformed. Numbers cascaded down like rain. At the bottom, a single result appeared. Stable Hannah did not celebrate. She did not smile. She simply reached for her communicator and placed a call that would change everything. "General Beak," she said when the connection opened. "I need you to come to the lunar facility. Bring Ambassador Sun Wu. Bring whoever makes the decisions now." She paused. "I found it. I found the way." 3 days later, the most powerful people in human space gathered in her laboratory. General Beak Junho had aged in the years since the exile. His hair was white now, his face lined with the weight of command. But his eyes were still sharp, still hungry for any advantage. Ambassador Sun Wu was there too. Older and thinner but still standing straight. The exile had not broken him. It had made him patient. "Show us," Beak said. Hannah activated her display. "The veil works by folding space around us," she explained, keeping her words simple. "It creates a pocket in the universe that we cannot leave. Ships cannot fly through it. Signals cannot pass. But there is a weakness." "What weakness?" Sun Wu asked. "The veil is powered by energy from outside our space. It draws from the galaxy around us to maintain the barrier. If we generate enough energy from inside, if we create a pulse strong enough, we can tear the fold apart. We can break through." General Beak leaned forward. "How much energy?" "More than we have ever produced. More than all our power plants combined." Hannah changed the display, showing schematics of a device she had designed. "But I have been working with a young engineer from New Busan. Her name is Osora. She has developed a way to harvest energy from quantum vacuum fluctuations. Empty space itself becomes our fuel." The room was silent. "If this works," Sun Wu said slowly, "we could leave whenever we want." "Yes, and they would never see us coming." General Beak stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars shone, cold and distant. Beyond them, invisible but ever present, the veil waited. "We cannot rush this," he said. "We have been building in secret for years. New ships, new weapons. But our fleet is not ready. If we break through now and face the Assembly's forces, we will lose." "How long do you need?" Hannah asked. Beak turned back to face them. 5 years. Maybe 10. We need more ships. We need better training. We need to be so strong that when we emerge, no one will dare to push us back." Sunwoo nodded. "Then we wait. And we build, and we let them think we are dying in here." That was the plan. And humanity followed it with a discipline that would have shocked their captors. On Earth, factories worked day and night. Not to produce consumer goods or luxury items, but to build the tools of survival. Ships took shape in orbital yards hidden behind the planet's shadow. Weapons were designed, tested, improved, and manufactured by the millions. On Mars, military academies trained a new generation of soldiers. These were not the scattered armies of old Earth, divided by nation and politics. These were the soldiers of the United Earth Sovereignty One Force, one purpose, one goal. On the colony worlds, engineers like Osora pushed the boundaries of what was possible. She was 28 years old and had never seen anything beyond the veil. She had grown up in a cage, and she had decided that her generation would be the one to break out. Her quantum harvesters were miracles of engineering, devices the size of buildings that pulled endless energy from nothing. Within 3 years, every human world had a network of them. Within 5 years, humanity had more power than it knew what to do with, and they used that power to prepare. The Assembly sent probes occasionally, small devices that slipped through gaps in the veil to observe the prisoners. These probes returned with images of humans farming, building homes, living peaceful lives. They saw no military buildup. They saw no weapons. They saw a species that had accepted its fate. This was by design. General Beak had established protocols from the first year. Nothing military could be visible from orbit. Nothing aggressive could be detected by outside sensors. The probes were allowed to see exactly what the Assembly wanted to see, a broken species slowly fading away. "They underestimate us because they want to," Beak explained to his commanders. "They need to believe we are weak. It makes them feel safe. It justifies what they did." He smiled grimly. "We will use their arrogance against them." On the 30th anniversary of the exile, Ambassador Sunwoo visited the shipyards above Mars. He walked through corridors of steel and glass, past workers who nodded respectfully as he passed. He was old now, 84 years old, and he knew he did not have much time left. But he needed to see this. The viewing platform looked out over the main construction bay. Floating in zero gravity, surrounded by thousands of workers, was the flagship of the human fleet. It was called the Unbowed. It was the largest warship humanity had ever built. Admiral Yoon Daeon met him at the platform. She was young, only 45, but she had been chosen to lead the fleet when the time came. She was calm, precise, and absolutely ruthless. "We are ready," she said. 400 ships, 50,000 trained personnel, weapons that can match anything the Assembly has. Wash Sunwoo stared at the massive vessel before him. "I made a promise," he said quietly. 30 years ago, I told them the veil would fall. I told them to remember who chose this path. And now." The old ambassador turned to face her. Despite his age, his eyes still held fire. "How we make them remember." On Convergence Prime, the celebration had been going on for hours. Delegates from across the galaxy gathered in the Great Hall, the same hall where humanity had been condemned 30 years before. They raised glasses filled with drinks from 100 worlds. They laughed and congratulated each other on their wisdom. They called it the Festival of Pisa, celebration of the day they had contained the human threat. High Counselor Veeler was dead now, passed away 15 years ago. But his successor, a younger Thrinax named Torak, continued the tradition. He stood at the highest point of the chamber and smiled down at the celebrating masses. 30 years of peace, he announced. 30 years without human expansion. 30 years of stability in our great galactic community. Let us toast to our continued prosperity. The crowd cheered. Glasses clinked. Music played. No one noticed the slight shimmer that appeared at the edge of human space. At exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time, the veil shuddered. In the command center of the Unbowed, Admiral Yoon Daeon watched the readings on her display. Around her, officers monitored systems and ran final checks. The entire fleet was in position, 400 ships arranged in a precise formation, all facing the invisible barrier that had imprisoned them for 3 decades. Quantum harvesters are at maximum output on all 7 worlds, an officer reported. Energy levels stable. Ready for synchronized pulse on your command. Yoon turned to look at the old man standing beside her command chair. Ambassador Sunwoo was thin and frail now, supported by a medical frame that kept him upright. But he had insisted on being here. He had waited 30 years for this moment. "Ambassador," she said, "would you like to give the order?" Sunwoo looked at the view screen. Beyond the stars, beyond the invisible wall, an entire galaxy waited. A galaxy that had thrown them away like garbage. A galaxy that had expected them to die. He smiled. "Begin." Yoon nodded and opened a channel to every ship in the fleet, every harvester on every world. Her voice was calm and steady. "All stations, this is Admiral Yoon. Commence Operation Dawn. Repeat, commence Operation Dawn." Across human space, the harvesters activated. Energy poured from devices that drew power from nothing, from the empty space between atoms. It flowed into massive transmitters built for this single purpose. And then, in perfect synchronization, it released. The pulse was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were not. The veil, the ancient, unbreakable barrier that had contained humanity for 30 years, shattered like glass. For one moment, a web of light appeared across the sky, visible from every human world. Then it was gone, dissolving into the void. And in its place, open space, free space. The stars they had been denied for so long. On the Unbowed's bridge, officers broke into cheers. Some cried. Some embraced each other. They had done the impossible. Admiral Yoon allowed herself a small smile. Then she straightened and returned to command mode.
Ow.
All ships, advance. Formation Delta 7. No weapons hot. Repeat, keep all weapons cold. We go in peace. For now, the fleet moved. 400 human warships poured through the gap where the veil had been. They spread across space like seeds scattered by the wind, each ship moving to a predetermined position. Some headed for key trade routes. Some approached alien homeworlds. Some positioned themselves near the great space stations where galactic commerce flowed. They did not fire a single shot. They did not issue any threats. They simply appeared, impossibly, undeniably. Everywhere at once. On Convergence Prime. The celebration ended in chaos. The first reports came through in the middle of Counselor Torak's speech. An aide rushed to him with a tablet, whispering urgently. Torak's silver face went pale. He grabbed the tablet and stared at the display as more and more red dots appeared on the galactic map. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The veil cannot be broken." It has never been broken, but the evidence was undeniable. Human ships were everywhere. They had appeared without warning, without detection, without any chance for the Assembly's forces to respond. Panic spread through the Great Hall. Delegates screamed and pushed toward exits. Some demanded military action. Others called for immediate surrender. No one knew what to do because no one had ever imagined this could happen. Then a message came through. It played on every screen in the station, on every communication channel in the galaxy. Admiral Yoon's face appeared, calm and composed, with the bridge of the Unbowed visible behind her. "Attention, Galactic Assembly," she said. "This is Admiral Yoon Daeon, of the United Earth Sovereignty. As you have no doubt noticed, the veil has been destroyed. Humanity is free." She paused to let the words sink in. "I want to be clear about our intentions. We have not come for revenge. We have not come for conquest. We have come for recognition." Her eyes seemed to look directly through the screen, meeting the gaze of every terrified alien watching. "You exiled us because you feared what we might become. You were right to fear, but not for the reasons you believed. On Convergence Prime, Counselor Torak stared at the screen with growing dread. Around him, military advisors shouted about fleet movements and defensive positions. But he understood something they did not. The human fleet had appeared everywhere, perfectly positioned. They had known exactly where to go, exactly how to spread out for maximum strategic impact. This was not a desperate escape. This was not a ragged band of survivors fleeing their prison. This was a military operation 30 years in the making, Admiral Yoon continued. You have two choices. You can fight a sand, you will lose. Our ships are faster than yours. Our weapons are stronger. We have spent 30 years preparing for this moment while you celebrated our imprisonment. She leaned forward slightly. Or you can talk to us. You can meet us as equals. You can give us what we should have had from the beginning. The message ended. In the silence that followed, Counselor Torak looked around the great hall. He saw the most powerful species in the galaxy reduced to terrified confusion. He saw military commanders who had never faced a real threat in their careers. He saw an assembly that had grown fat and complacent, secure in its own superiority. And somewhere out there, he knew. Human ships waited, patient, ready, unbowed. An aide approached him. Counselor, what do we do? Torak closed his eyes. The universe had changed in an instant, and nothing would ever be the same. Contact their fleet, he said finally. Tell them we are willing to talk. 3 weeks had passed since the veil fell, and the galaxy was still holding its breath. The human fleet remained in position. They had not advanced further. They had not attacked anyone. They simply waited, like a hand hovering over a board game, ready to move, but choosing not to. It was this restraint that frightened the assembly most of all. Koris. The new speaker of the assembly understood something that many of his colleagues did not. He was not Thrinix. He was from a smaller species called the Myron, known for their practical thinking. He had opposed the original exile vote 30 years ago, though his single voice had meant nothing against the tide. Now he was in charge of cleaning up the mess. They want the meeting on one of their colony worlds, his aide reported. A planet called New Inchin. They will guarantee our safety. One of the Thrinax generals snorted, and we are supposed to trust the word of these primitives. Koris turned to face him. General, they have ships surrounding our homeworld. They have vessels positioned at every major trade route. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have started already. He shook his head. No, they want something else, and we need to find out what it is. The delegation left for Nunchan the next day. They expected to find a primitive world, barely surviving after decades of isolation. They expected mud huts, struggling farms, desperate people. That was what the probes had shown them for 30 years. The probes had lied. New Inchin was beautiful. Clean cities rose from green valleys. Aerial vehicles moved through clear skies. The population looked healthy, well-fed, and educated. Children played in parks while adults went about their business with calm purpose. Koris watched through the shuttle window as they descended toward the capital. His heartbeat 3 beat faster with each passing moment. This is not possible, one of his aides whispered. They should have collapsed. Every projection said they would collapse. Our projections were wrong, Koris said quietly. We should start accepting that. The meeting took place in a conference center overlooking the city. The human delegation was already waiting when Koris and his team arrived. He recognized Admiral Yoon from her broadcast comm, controlled, watching them with eyes that missed nothing. Ambassador Sunwoo was there too, seated in a medical chair that supported his aging body. He was very old now, clearly in his final years, but his gaze was sharp, and when he saw Koris, something like recognition passed between them, and then there was the third human, young woman with short black hair and a confident posture. She stood at the front of the delegation, and when she spoke, it was clear that she was the one in charge. Speaker Koris, she said, my name is Han Murray. I will be presenting humanity's terms today. Koris nodded and took his seat. We are here to listen. Han Murray smiled slightly. It was not a warm expression. Good. Then let me be direct. We have 4 demands. She activated a display behind her. Text appeared in both human script and Galactic standard. First, full membership in the Galactic Assembly. Equal voting rights. Equal representation. No restrictions, no conditions. A murmur ran through the alien delegation. Equal membership was granted only two species that had proven themselves over centuries. Humanity had been part of galactic civilization for less than 50 years.
I get reparations.
Not in resources or currency, we have developed everything we need. We want access to all scientific databases previously denied to us. All research, all discoveries, all knowledge that the elder species have hoarded for themselves. Elmer grew louder. Those databases were closely guarded. They contained secrets that species had spent millennia protecting. Third, a public statement acknowledging that the exile was unjust. Not a private apology. A full broadcast to every world in the galaxy, admitting that the assembly imprisoned an innocent species out of fear and prejudice. Now the aliens were openly agitated. Several stood to protest. Corey's raised a hand to quiet them, but his own face had grown pale. And fourth, Han Murray continued, unmoved by the reaction. The complete dismantling of all technology capable of creating another veil. Every device, every blueprint, every record. We will verify the destruction ourselves. She deactivated the display and faced Corey's directly. These are our terms. They are not negotiable. Corey sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, his advisors whispered frantically, calculating military options, diplomatic alternatives, anything that might avoid this humiliation. Finally, he spoke. These demands are unprecedented. You ask for more than any species has ever been granted. 30 years ago, you did something unprecedented to us, Han Murray replied. You imprisoned an entire civilization for the crime of growing too quickly. You expected us to die. We did not die. We evolved. And now we are here, asking for nothing more than what we deserved from the beginning. And if we refuse, Admiral Yoon leaned forward slightly. Speaker, I mean no disrespect, but you know the answer to that question. We have ships at every strategic point in your galaxy. We have weapons you have never seen. We have spent 30 years preparing for every possible scenario. She paused. You have spent 30 years celebrating. The room fell silent. Corey's looked at the old ambassador, Sun Wu, who had not spoken during the entire meeting. Their eyes met. You were there, Corey said. 30 years ago. You warned us this would happen. Sun Wu's voice was weak but steady. I told you the veil would fall. I told you to remember who chose this path. Did you think those were empty words? Corey shook his head slowly. No, I suppose I did not. He turned to Han Murray. The assembly will need time to consider these terms. You have 1 month, she replied. After that, we will assume negotiations have failed. The meeting ended. As the alien delegation returned to their shuttle, Corey's pulled his most trusted aide aside. What do our military advisors say? He asked. The aide's voice trembled. They say if we fight, we will lose half the galaxy before we can mount a proper defense. The humans are too well prepared. They know our weaknesses. They have technology we do not understand. Corey's nodded slowly. And yet they sit here asking for recognition. Asking for equality. He looked back at the conference center where Han Murray stood at a window, watching them leave. They could take everything by force. They could burn our worlds and claim our resources. Instead, they want a seat at the table. Is that not a good thing? Corey's was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that would haunt him for years. That is what terrifies me most. They could destroy us, but they choose not to. What kind of species has that much power and that much control? He shook his head. We created this. We made them what they are. And now we have to live with the consequences. 1 year had passed since the veil fell. The Galactic Assembly had debated for months. The Thrinax and their allies fought against humanity's demands until the very end. They warned of human aggression, human unpredictability, human danger. They demanded military action, even as their own strategists admitted such action would be suicide. In the end, the vote passed. Not unanimously, the Thrinax and 12 other species voted against. But the majority understood what Corey's had understood from the beginning. Humanity was offering them a chance. and they would be fools to refuse it. The ceremony was held on Convergence Prime, the same great hall. The same floating seats arranged in that massive circle. The same artificial clouds drifting near the ceiling. But everything else had changed. Ambassador Park Sunwoo walked slowly toward the central platform. His medical frame supported most of his weight now. His doctors had told him he had months left, maybe weeks, but he had refused to miss this day. He had waited 31 years. He would not wait any longer. Captain Lee Yuna walked beside him. She was old too now, her hair gray and her face lined with age. But she held her head high and matched his pace, step for step, just as she had when they were both young and standing in this same hall for a very different reason. "Do you remember what you said?" she asked quietly. That last day, before the veil activated, Sunwoo smiled. "I told them the veil would fall. I told them to remember who chose this path. And now." He looked up at the thousands of faces staring down at them. Alien delegates from across the galaxy, watching as humans took their place among them. Some faces showed respect. Some showed fear. Some showed hatred that would take generations to fade. "Oh," Sunwoo said, "we show them what we truly are." The ceremony was formal and precise. Speaker Corys read the Declaration of Membership. Admiral Yoon Daeon stood at attention as Earth's flag was raised alongside the banners of the other member species. In the audience, Dr. Kim Hannah watched with tears streaming down her face. Beside her sat General Baek Junho, now retired, his work finally complete. And next to him was Oh Sora, the young engineer who had made it all possible. They had spent their lives building toward this moment. And now at last it had arrived. Han Murray stepped forward to deliver humanity's acceptance speech. She was young and strong and confident, everything the galaxy had once feared about humanity. But when she spoke, her words were not about conquest or revenge. "We stand here today as equals," she began. "Not because we demanded it with weapons, not because we forced you to accept us, but because we earned it. We earned it through survival, through innovation, through patience, through sacrifice." The hall was silent. Every delegate listened. 31 years ago, you looked at humanity and saw a threat. You saw a young species growing too fast, feeling too deeply, reaching too far. You decided we needed to be contained. You decided we were too dangerous to be free. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "You were right about one thing. We are dangerous. But not in the way you believed. We are dangerous because we do not give up. We are dangerous because we adapt. We learn, we grow stronger. We are dangerous because when you push us down, we rise." Han Murray looked directly at the Thrinax delegation. They sat in stony silence, their silver faces revealing nothing. "We could have destroyed you," she said simply. "Our fleet could have burned your worlds. Our weapons could have torn your civilizations apart. We had the power. We had the cause. Many of our people wanted revenge." She shook her head slowly. "But that is not who we are. We did not survive 30 years in a cage to become the monsters you believed us to be. We survived to prove you wrong. And we proved it not through destruction, but through creation. Not through hatred, but through hope." Her voice softened slightly. "We forgive you. That is our choice. Forgiveness does not mean we forget. We will never forget. But we choose to move forward. We choose to build a future where no species is judged by how fast they grow or how deeply they feel. We choose to be better than what was done to us." She straightened and spoke her final words with quiet intensity. "Let this be the lesson of humanity. We forgive because that is who we choose to be. But we do not forget, and let no species ever again be punished for the fire in their hearts. We are watching now. We will always be watching." The hall remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with the smaller species, those who had always been overlooked, who had always feared they might be next. It spread to the mid-level civilizations, the practical ones, who understood that the universe had changed. Even some of the elder races joined in, recognizing something they had not expected to find in these young, dangerous humans. The Thrinax did not applaud, but they did not leave either. They sat and watched, and perhaps, for the first time, they truly saw In the days that followed, something unexpected happened. 3 species approached humanity in secret. They had been considering exile themselves, marked as too aggressive or too independent by the Assembly's standards. They had watched what happened to Earth and waited in fear for their own turn. Now they wanted to talk. They wanted to learn. They wanted to know how humanity had survived. Han Marais met with them personally. She listened to their fears and answered their questions. She told them about the silent years, about the factories and shipyards, about the quantum harvesters and the fleet that broke the veil, and then she made them a promise. If the Assembly ever moves against you, she said, you will not stand alone. Humanity remembers what it feels like to be abandoned. We will not let it happen to anyone else. Word spread quickly. Other species began reaching out. Some wanted trade agreements. Some wanted military cooperation. Some simply wanted to talk, to understand these strange creatures who had turned exile into evolution. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of that change. On the last day of the ceremony, Ambassador Sun Wu stood at the viewport of a shuttle returning to Earth. Li Yuna stood beside him, as she always had. The stars streamed past outside, and for the first time in 31 years, they were not prisoners looking at a cage. They were free citizens looking at an open universe. Is it worth it? Yuna asked quietly. 30 years behind that barrier. 30 years of silence. 30 years of waiting and building and hoping. Sun Wu watched the stars for a long time before answering. They tried to bury us, he said finally. His voice was soft, but there was a strength in it that age could not diminish. They did not know we were seeds. Yuna nodded slowly. She understood. Somewhere ahead, Earth waited. Behind them, a galaxy that had tried to destroy humanity was learning to live with them instead. And everywhere, on every world and in every heart, the lesson spread. You cannot cage a species that refuses to die. You cannot break a people who choose to grow. You cannot defeat a civilization that turns every obstacle into opportunity. The veil had fallen. The exile had ended, and humanity patient, resilient. Unbowed had taken its place, among the stars, not as prisoners, not as threats, but as equals, and the galaxy would never be the same.